Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today was a big day because Apple just released a bunch of new iPads. They have a new iPad Pro, iPad Air, and they made a price change on the intro level iPad. In terms of accessories, they have a new Apple Pencil as well as new keyboards to go along with the iPads. So a lot of new iPad stuff, but I came away pretty disappointed.
My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined.
And I'll tell you why. But let's start with some of the changes that they have made today. We're going to go in order from the budget models all the way to the iPad Pro models. In terms of the standard iPad, it now starts at $349, so there was a price cut there. But nothing really changed in terms of this introduction model other than the price cut. Next on the list, you have the iPad Air, which was redesigned. And it comes in two sizes now. It has the smaller 11-inch size, but also a larger 13-inch size. This is actually pretty interesting because before, the only way that you can get a larger iPad display was if you bought one of the Pro models. So I think this is actually the first time that you could buy a larger iPad size in the 12-inch plus range without having to purchase the Pro level. So I think this will be really popular for people that want to get that bigger size, but not necessarily spend the money for the Pro model.
That is a great deal!
Now, I think the iPad that came with the most changes is actually the iPad Pro. And there's actually a lot of cool things that they did here. The first thing that they managed to do was actually make it thinner. And according to Apple, this is the thinnest Apple product ever made. This will be really interesting to actually see in person. I actually have one of these on pre-order now. But if you remember back to when Apple actually demonstrated thinness on stage, I think it was probably the first introduction of the MacBook Air. It's a really famous scene now where Steve Jobs takes out the first generation of the MacBook Air from one of those yellow work envelopes to demonstrate the thinness. Back then we thought that was really thin, but somehow they were able to make the iPad Pro even thinner than the previous version, which I already thought was pretty thin.
How is that possible?
Now, aside from thinness, they actually introduced a new CPU as well. And what surprised me is that they're introducing this new CPU, which is the Apple M4 chip, on an iPad first rather than one of their laptops. Usually they normally introduce these new chips on their laptops first, and then it'll start to trickle its way down to the other product lines. So really interesting that they introduced this new M4 chip on an iPad. So it'll be cool to see how much faster this is compared to other iPad Pro versions, but also compared to some of the newer MacBooks. Completely forgot to mention that one of the new features of the new iPad Pro is also something called a tandem OLED display. So what Apple has done is they've taken two OLED screens and laid them on top of one another, which is supposed to allow for a really bright screen, but also a really dark screen as well. Now they're calling this new technology the Ultra Retina XDR, which allows for really extreme brightness as well as really precise contrast. I've been an OLED screen user for a long time. I purchased one of the original LG OLED TVs. And for years now, I truly believe that OLED technology is the best for displays because it offers the true blacks where the pixels actually turn off when there is a black color on the screen. The displays also get really bright and there's really beautiful contrast between all the colors. So I've been a big fan of OLED technology for a long time. I've always thought that the iPad Pro screens were very good the way they are, but I'm excited to see how big of a difference there is between the older versions of the iPad Pro versus this new OLED screen. And then one final item that I'm really interested in testing for myself is this redesigned thinner Magic Keyboard. Supposedly it has a more comfortable typing experience as well as a haptic trackpad experience. From the demo videos that I've seen, the Magic Keyboard, the surface has a aluminum texture to it. Now I actually own a 12.9-inch iPad Pro right now with the Magic Keyboard, and I've always felt that when you combine the iPad Pro with that Magic Keyboard together and you're carrying it around, it actually feels pretty dense and weighty and almost heavier than some of my 13-inch or 14-inch laptops.
Weirdly heavy.
I've never actually weighed the two side by side, but for some reason it just feels heavier to carry around. So the fact that they were able to reduce the thinness of the iPad Pro as well as the Magic Keyboard, I'm really interested in seeing how different it feels in the hand when carrying that versus the older generation of the iPad Pro. Now, let me tell you guys why I came away pretty disappointed from this keynote.
Disappointed!
And it has everything to do with one of their other iPads, which is the iPad mini. Now, if you watch the entire presentation, Tim Cook only mentions the word iPad mini once, which is towards the end. I'm actually really surprised that they didn't use this opportunity to do some upgrades to the iPad mini, because I think it's a great size, but it's long overdue for an internal upgrade. I have the current version of the iPad mini. I don't really have any complaints about the physical design of it. I think it's pretty updated. However, the internals are very, very outdated.
Millions of years older than mankind.
I actually don't really enjoy using my iPad mini, because every time I switch between my iPad mini and then over to something like the iPhone 15, right away it feels like the iPad mini interface when I'm scrolling or swiping between home pages, it just feels very laggy, very stuttery, and it's not a good experience. So I really don't understand why Apple didn't use this opportunity to upgrade it to, at the very least, their own chipsets, whether it's the older M1 or even the M2. And I think you'll probably see a lot of discussion about this online on Reddit and the Mac rumor forums. But why? Why didn't you guys update it, Apple?
Why?
It's such a great iPad. It's actually one of my favorites because of how small it is and how portable it is, but at the same time, how functional it is. But it's long overdue for a performance upgrade. If you look at the tech specs, it's using the A15 Bionic chip, which is, even though it's a pretty fast chip for like a phone, I think it's starting to show its age in terms of the iPad chips that it could use. A lot of the other ones have already used the M1, M2, and now the M4 chip. So it's already several generations behind the rest of the lineup. And I don't really understand why Apple didn't use this opportunity to do an upgrade on this as well. And again, they didn't even have to do anything on the outside. They just had to change the inside and give it a spec upgrade. And I think it would have been a really solid machine with the rest of their lineup. So I was really looking forward to an update to the iPad mini. I would have bought another one right away, but I'm glad to see that they made such big upgrades to the iPad Pro. I'm really excited about the new form factor. I'm also excited about the new chipset that they decided to use, as well as the new Magic Keyboard. It's starting to seem like this version of the iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard is getting closer and closer to being a laptop replacement. So I have it on order right now. So once I start testing it, I'll see how close it is to that point. But please, Apple, please update the iPad mini.